welcome and well met. You are listening to the WitchyChick podcast with that magically delicious witch herself, Serenity. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who downloaded the previous show, which was the very first show in my podcast. I received such an outpouring. So many people tuned in, downloaded, emailed. I even got comments on the website. So I am thankful and grateful. And I am so glad so many people did enjoy the show. Um, I love doing this. So to get the feedback really is awesome. Thank you. And today, uh, for podcast number 2, I would like to talk to you or have a discussion about diversity within the pagan community. Yes, I know I'm bringing out old Nelly and we are beating that to death, but I don't think I'm beating it to death as much as raising awareness or continuing to raise awareness that it's an issue. It is something that needs to be discussed. So we're going to talk about it. um, being a woman of color and being a member of the LGBT community, um, diversity is something that is part of my everyday life, or fighting for recognition of diversity and for the celebration of diversity. Because for me, it's not enough that we recognize that there is diversity within our ranks. Um, because recognizing diversity is not the same as acceptance, as tolerance, as and definitely it's miles away from celebration or honoring the diversity. I mean, uh, you could see like a dog down the road, stray dog, and you could say, "There's a dog there." Doesn't mean you're going to invite it in your house. Doesn't mean you're going to give it a meal. Doesn't mean you're going to, you know, include it. So I think um, when we pay lip service to diversity and we allow, quote unquote, allow people within the circle that are different from us, then it's different than truly folding someone in and giving them a home and opening our minds and our hearts enough to say, the divine in me recognizes and honors the divine in you. And to get us started, why don't I just whip up the definition of diversity. Uh, and this is coming from the Merriam-Webster online website. And I think it's important first that we define what we're speaking about. Well, diversity is the condition of having or being composed of differing elements, especially the inclusion of different types of people, as in people of different races and or cultures in a group or organization. An instance of being composed of differing elements or qualities. So that is what it is. That's what we're talking about. And within the pagan community, the paganism covers such a plethora of beliefs, paths, what have you. And that is important to recognize first and foremost, that we ourselves, just by way of being pagan or, you know, calling ourselves a member of that community, we are exploring diversity for ourselves. However, I think where I would like to have the discussion is that if we are continually, and we are fighting for acceptance, we are fighting for recognition, we are fighting for that seat at the table. And I have been part of that fight. I have been part of that movement. It's important to me. It's important to all of us. But at the same time, we can't really ask for a seat at the table, at the mainstream table, if we are not willing to open our minds, open our hearts, and explore the diversity that is within our own ranks. If we are not willing to celebrate it within ourselves, if we spend our time being, more pagan than thou, if we are in the business of, I'm going to put you down so that I may lift myself up. So my path is older than yours. It's more authentic than yours. It's more real than yours. I'm more witch than you. You're Wiccan. That's not real. You're a person of color, so you shouldn't be practicing this anyway. You know, we have our LGBT sisters and brothers, uh, and they have to create paths just for themselves because we're honoring female and male energies, not recognizing that within all of us are those same male and female energies. We can't do that. So we are so busy looking at the differences between us that we don't bother to see what actually brings us together. We are all looking for like minds and kindred spirits, and we are all looking for those people that resonate with us. But I think that being part of society, being part of this particular society, we are so busy looking for people that may look like us, may live like us, may speak as we do, that if someone comes who is different, we are so busy looking at the outer trappings that we don't see that which is within us, that makes us resonate. Because I could see a guy, perhaps a white guy, he may have shaved all his hair off, and he may have also have tattoos and piercings, and he may work as an artist. He may be in an unconventional relationship. He may be in no relationship. But because I'm so busy looking at the tattoos and the piercings and the bald head, and he's listening to heavy metal or whatever, that I can't see that which makes us the same, because I'm so caught up in the superficial. And a lot of us are. We only feel comfortable with those who look like us, who love like us, who worship like us, who think like us. And that's, I think, part and parcel of just being human. But at the same time, it's it's not recognizing, honoring, or celebrating diversity in any way, shape, or form. Because not only do we only look at those outer trappings, we actively will reject anything that looks different from our expectation. And it's just so weird because as pagans, we're about as outside of the mainstream as you could possibly get. And yet we within ourselves will squabble over pettiness. We will sit there and we will say, "Oh my goodness, they worship this way. That's not authentic. It's not real. They haven't studied, and I'm this degree, and I've got, this title, that title, you know, I can't even write my entire title on one line. It has to take up two or three because I'm high priestess of this, and I'm uh, a clergy with that, and da 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 da. And in the end, all that serves to do is just to put more barriers between ourselves. And when you do that, you really miss opportunities because sometimes you are missing out on having some amazing experiences with people. It boggles my mind. I had to take a moment. I had to take a moment there because it boggles my mind that when you don't open your mind and you don't open your heart, you're closed off. And the thing is, if we were all homogenous, if we were all the same, we were all the same color, we were all the same, uh, religion, we were all the same education level, we did the same job. What could we possibly get from each other? Where would be the flavor? Where would be the difference? It would be like eating a big bowl of vanilla ice cream. And don't get me wrong, vanilla, I love it. But we are not, there is nothing added to it. We don't expand ourselves. Um, for myself, and just, on a personal note, I live in a diverse kind of commune situation. I am the only female here. There are 5 people, so I live with 4 males, and that's that's another story. But it's very interesting. Um, we are gay, we are bi, we have one straight guy, and we are black, and we are white, and we are city, and some of us are very, very country. and but we learn from each other because that is not all that we are. We are people, and we learn things. We One of the members of our little family, it goes to church every Sunday. He's a Christian, and he's gay, and he sings in the choir, and very talented. And he is very, very rooted in his faith, and we have discussions. And I so respect how rooted he is in his faith, even though it's not mine. It's not my walk. It's not my path. But I respect so much. Uh, and I learn from him. And I appreciate the lessons. And it's never a judgment. It's never, well, it's never a judgment. Because, as I said before, God comes to us with a face in which we can best recognize him, her, it, even if it is no face at all. So it's not a matter of, well, this is the construct that you live under, and I don't live under that construct, therefore I gain nothing from it. Because you can always gain from anything that is positive, because there's a lot positive in all the paths. As long as I'm not hurting anyone, including myself, I am open to the experience that I can gain from other people. And I know a lot of us are like that, or so we say, until it is actually in our face, until we actually have to, until we're confronted with it. And then what do we do? If a black person says, I'm a pagan, is that weird to you? Do you immediately think of voodoo, Santeria, one of the Ifa, one of the African flavored pagan paths? Or are you open to the fact that they might be Wiccan, or they might even practice Asatru? I don't know. Are you? If there is a woman who comes to you and says, you know what, I am not into the goddess at all, but I'm really into Apollo, or I'm really into Thor, or I feel male energy. That is what I resonate with, and that is who I serve. What do you say to that? If there is a person who comes to you and says, I am gay, and there's a male, and he's a male, and he says, but I resonate with female energy, and I worship Hera. Or I worship Isis. I serve them. Does that give you pause? Or are you open enough to say, okay, that is how you are getting down, and blessed be to that. Well met. Come on in. Or does it make you think? Do you hesitate? That's where we might be having the disconnect within the community, because in your mind, it doesn't look like what it should be or what we think it should be. And that is where we're not celebrating diversity. That is not celebrating diversity. That is not even being tolerant. That is our own social prejudice. And we all have it because we are taught, and this is it's external, but we're taught, you know, girls wear pink, boys wear blue, men and women get together, they marry, they have babies, they live like the Waltons, happily ever after, and there you go. But that's not everybody's story, nor should it be. Everybody everybody has a life to live, and they should live it in peace and in happiness and finding their own bliss. And what we should do, if we are truly open to and celebrating diversity, is opening our mind and our heart and understanding that their walk is different from our expectation, from our upbringing, but this is their walk. And we ought to support them in that walk. If what they are doing is healthy and it is happy and it is not hurting anyone, why can't we? Why can't we circle with them? Another personal story. I had a friend when I was in Germany, and my husband at the time was stationed there. He was in the army. Now, she was a Buddhist, and I was a pagan. But while our husbands, they were in the same unit, and they were both sent to Iraq. And during that time, we would have weekly get-togethers. And we would actually have ritual together. And she would bring her Buddha statue for the altar, and I would bring a goddess statue, or I would bring any representation at the time that I was thinking of that was higher power. Sometimes I would put a globe to represent the earth. Sometimes I would just bring a picture of the stars. One time I even brought I brought a little model that I have of the Star Trek Enterprise to represent soaring through the universe. Um, and we would get together with these symbols, and we would have a great bottle of wine. We'd light our candles, and we would just express positivity. We would express our thoughts, our hopes, and our wishes. We would affirm each other. Um, and we would just come together. Now, she was a Buddhist, and she was blonde, and she was just the cutest little pixie you've ever seen. But we would come together, and it didn't matter that she was like, I think at this time she just turned 20, very young, and at that point I was 33. We connected over, none of the outer trappings mattered. What mattered is that we were friends, and that we could connect both as military wives whose husbands were deployed, and we could also celebrate the fact that we both opened our minds, and that we understood that positivity, whatever the language, whatever the path, we were stronger together, bringing our positive energy together than we were in our own separate housing units, just sitting there missing our men. you know, and it was such an affirming thing. And then we kind of folded more people into this practice. So by the time, and this went on during the whole 15 months that the unit was gone. And as we all came together, there were Christians, there were atheists, we all came together because we were stronger together. And we would we would light our candles, and we would just bring representations of things that we thought were positive or things that we felt represented God. So the pretty soon we had to move off the little altar that I had, and we would just put them in the center of the floor, and there were crosses there. And we even had a woman who would take off her hijab and she would put it in there because she was Muslim. And we had another young woman. It was, she hadn't been married that long, and she didn't have anything else to bring. Because she didn't know what she would believe, she was questioning, and she would just bring a picture of her husband and put it there on the altar. And it wasn't that he was God for her. It was just, this is what I'm thinking about. I have no other symbol that really represents anything for me right now but this. And so everything was accepted, and we all brought it together, and we would just sit there and we would have our wine and we would hold hands, and we would sometimes sing songs. And these songs would range from spirituals and church songs, and sometimes we would just get songs off the radio, country songs. Sometimes we just play classical music and it moved us, or musicals and songs from musicals that we liked. And every time a couple of the women would pick something different, and we would all listen to it. And it was a spiritual, uplifting experience, even though each one of us, within what we begin to call the sister circle, we um, it all just felt very right. And none of us looked at each other for the outer trappings. At that point, we were all just coming together to uplift each other. And then we got a male who came in because his wife was away, came new to the unit and was sent away, and he needed support. So we tucked him into, and he came. And so it didn't matter. Gender didn't matter. Color didn't matter. We would host these at different people's houses after a while, and it just became such a positive force. Um, and we still called it the sister circle even after the husband came, but it didn't matter. Because we were family. And that, I think, is what circles are. We become family because you're trusting people and you're letting down your guard, and you're coming together to bring positive energy to yourself and to each other. And so I think that when we do that, we're experiencing true diversity. And I would like to also give you another um, definition. And I thought that this was so very interesting. It's from the University of Oregon. It's from their diversity initiatives. And it says the concept of diversity encompasses acceptance and respect. It means understanding that each individual is unique and recognizing our individual differences. These can be along the dimensions of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, age, physical abilities, religious beliefs, political beliefs, or other ideologies. It is the exploration of these differences in a safe, positive, and nurturing environment. It is about understanding each other and moving beyond simple tolerance to embracing and celebrating the rich dimensions of diversity contained within each individual. Now, this is going to become my new mantra. This is going to become part and parcel of the larger, uh, I guess, um, motto that I live by, or words that I live by, because this is important. This is truly diversity. It's not simply saying, I accept the fact that you don't do what I do. To me, that is not diversity. That is simply saying, I'm going to sit next to somebody on the bus who's not the same as me, and I will tolerate this ride. And once I am done, I will get off this bus, and I will probably never see that person again. But I will not engage them. I will not attempt to find out anything about them. I will stay within my own self, and I will do what I do. That's not diversity. That's not celebrating diversity. Simply saying, okay, I'm going to be in the circle with this person, but I will not engage them. They are too different. I don't think we have anything in common, but we'll do this ritual together, and then I will leave and go home. That is not diversity. It seriously is not enough to simply say, okay, we're going to open the circle. Oh, you showed up? Okay, great. Whatever. That's not enough. That's not diversity. Please don't fool yourself into thinking it's diversity. It is the same thing as when, as you get a new neighbor and they don't look how you want them to look, but you can't do anything about it because they bought that house or they paid that rent, and you just have to kind of, you know, put up with it. Putting up with something, that's not even tolerance. That's not even really tolerating something. That is, if I had my druthers, that person wouldn't be there because I am uncomfortable with whatever is different about them. That's not tolerance, and it's definitely not celebrating diversity. So let's think. How often are we doing that? Are we really celebrating diversity? And I think at this point, it's really great to take a quick break, and I'm going to play a promo. But I want to thank you very much for listening to the first half of the WitchyChick podcast, where we are attempting to dissect diversity so that we in turn can explore ourselves and celebrate the things that make each one of us the very special people that we are. Thanks for listening. You come on back.
This is Luckylicious from Eat My Pagan Ass, a pagan podcast that believes dirty jokes can save the world. Enlightenment doesn't have to be dull. Join us in blurring the lines between the sacred and the profane. Be offended, be enlightened. It's all the same to us. Rules. Who needs them?
If you don't like it, well, you can eat my pagan ass.
Never underestimate the power of humor. Visit eatmypaganass.com or search Eat My Pagan Ass on Facebook, Twitter, and iTunes.
Welcome back. You are still listening to the WitchyChick podcast, and we are celebrating diversity, or rather dissecting what diversity truly is, and looking at ways that we are not as tolerant as we think we are, and ways that we can combat that so that we can be a more rich and diverse community. I think it's really important to look at that because we learn so much when we open ourselves up. You cannot learn anything when your mind is closed and your heart is closed. And let me tell you, since becoming a pagan and getting on that path when I was so young, when I was 18, I'm telling you, you really have to have an open mind to even be on this path to accept a lot of the things. And that's not the only thing within my experience that causes me to have an open mind. I mean, I'm a geek, I'm a gamer. There's a whole lot of things about me that cause me to have an open mind. But with paganism and meeting other pagans and being accepting and really embracing that the differences. I mean, I've had to open my mind. If my mind got any more open behind paganism, my whole brain would fall out. Seriously. And you have to have an open mind because the beliefs are so diverse. Because the wonderful thing and the beautiful thing about paganism is that we can craft something. We can craft a path that works for us. We have the ability to do that. And we are so very blessed. And it is such a gift to be able to find something that resonates and that works with us, that individually. And we grow through that. But we also grow through seeing other people's paths and the things that work for them. And it's like, okay, you're opening up a whole new world to me. I had no idea this existed or that this was a thing, but it is. And blessed be. Because hey, now I am taking from you and I am learning something and I am opening myself up to different ways of celebrating, different ways of ritual. And it is only empowering me as a person, as a witch, and as a pagan. And it's making me a better member of this community that I can open myself up to you and that we can share something. We're raising the vibration, we're raising the energy. And it is an awesome, awesome thing when that truly happens. When you know the way when you meet somebody and you resonate with them and they're just like, in 10 minutes, you're like best friends because you opened yourself up to them. And it could be the craziest thing. It could be a person that you would never even think to talk to on that bus. But you do. You take a chance. You open up. And it only strengthens us as a community. It's such an amazing thing when that happens. How much stronger would we be if instead of squabbling over this degree, that degree, Gardner, or who taught what, who's more authentic, which thing, which path is older, and nothing is authentic in 2013. I'm going to tell you that right now. What you are doing, if you are doing it on the computer, you got to know it's not authentic. Because if you want to live authentic, then you need to take a book out of Laura Ingalls' page and you need to go build yourself a little log cabin, and you need to go also take some of that wood and build an outhouse. And you need to be living near a water source so that you can go and get your wooden bucket that you've also built. And you need to go on down to the river and then pick some of that up. And by the way, I hope you have a good bow and arrow that you've constructed out of some of that wood, or what have you. And are you killing, your food on a daily basis, because you can create ice, but not really because you don't have a refrigerator. I mean, that annoys me more than anything. I think when people are like, "Oh, this is old, this ancient. I'm doing it just the way people were doing it back then." No, you're not, because you're doing it on the internet. You're listening to a podcast. Let's be real. What we are doing is we are honoring those ancient ways, but we are doing it in a way that works for our lives today. And there is nothing wrong with that, but let's call it what it is. So when you're berating this person and saying, oh, Wicca's too new, um, whatever you're doing, if you're doing it in your house and you're using your wonderful, you are creating your own incense and things like that, and you're using your mortar and pestle that you ordered off the internet, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna call BS on that, and I'm just gonna call you out, because none of what we are doing is ancient. We don't live in those times. We are modern pagans. We need to accept that, and then if we if we look at it the way it truly is, I think a lot of that squabbling uh, would really cease and desist. It would come to a halt real quick, just because it doesn't even make sense. Nothing we do is ancient. None of us is living in that time. It is great to honor that time, but we also need to recognize that it has evolved, and the evolution is great. I don't personally want to live in some of those times, because some of those times were not good for, because I like having the vote as a woman. I like the fact that the Supreme Court has now said that if I want to marry a woman, I can do so. I like the fact that I can vote as a black person. There are some things that were going on in the past that I would not want to revisit. So I don't need uh, to to have something so ancient. It is great. Some of the things that were ancient, some of the ways of using uh, natural ingredients and living in a simpler time. Some of that stuff was good and does can be incorporated today. But the great thing about evolving is as we have learned and as we have grown up as people, as a society, as humanity itself has grown, we have now seen the error of some of our earlier ways, and we now have things that are more fair for more people. Um, so there's nothing wrong with new. There's nothing. You must grow up. You must evolve. You, if we don't do that, uh, then we're not getting better. So I think as a part of that, that's where celebrating diversity comes from. Because there was a time when only uh, men of a certain color and a certain, you know, they had to own land and it was only them, were the only ones who got to say anything about what everybody did. They made rules and laws and things for all of us. And now people of other races, of other cultures, of other genders, uh, even if it's a gender that's not within the traditional two, are now getting a seat at the table, are now getting to have their say. And I think it's only good. We have grown and we are growing. And so we need to, as pagans, also recognize that we are growing, and that we have to have this evolution. We have to open the door. We have to put more seats at the table if we are going to be viable into the future. If paganism is going to become a strong community and is going to enrich the entire human experience. Um, and the final thing that I've got on my website, and I found this at Armed Venus, it's the Witch's Pyramid of Diversity. And I think it is so amazing that I'm going to post this permanently on my website because it's important to remember. And we all are familiar with the witch's normal pyramid: to know, dare, will, and be silent. But they've added some things that help us with are embracing and celebrating and honoring of diversity. Um, know your privileges. Dare to call out bigotry. Will to engage in discussion. Be silent when others struggle to be heard. And I think that all of these things are so very important, so very important for all of us to do. And I did in the post for this particular podcast say, how can we ask for a seat at the mainstream table when we are unwilling to explore and at times accept the diversity within our own ranks? We can't. Because if we're still squabbling like children, mainstream is going to look at that and say, you don't have your stuff together. How in the world are you going to bring all of this drama to us and say, hey, we deserve to be here too? We need to accept within ourselves that we are comprised of many different type of people. And it does not in any way diminish us. In fact, it strengthens us. It makes us better. It we are an example. Our paths, our community is an example of what can be done good in this world when we open ourselves and we say, hey, we are comprised of Black people, white people, Native American, Hispanic, and we all have our paths and we're learning from each other. Hey, we are men, we are women, we are asexual, we are gay, we are straight, we are bi, we are transgendered, we are queer, we don't identify at all, we are atheists and asatru, and we're uh, you know Celtic, and we're all of these things, and we are all the better for it. That is celebrating diversity. And I think we can, if we can wrap our heads around it and have a real discussion about it, it would only serve to make us stronger. So that is Serenity on her soapbox for this episode. And it really feels good to be able to talk about it. What I'd love to do is to get more feedback from you guys. And of course, here's where I pitch it. Um, Please, you can contact me via email at d.witch@witchychick.me. M-E. Or I have a contact form on my website at WitchyChick.me, and you can click contact and it will come to me via email and we can discuss this, or you can leave a comment right here on this particular on this particular podcast post. I would love it. I want to know how you feel about it. I'm going to be talking about it via social media. Please follow me on Twitter. Uh, Please, I have a Facebook page. You can post there. You can comment on this particular post as well. Leave a comment there. I'm also on Google Plus. So please, you can get me there and we can talk about it there. I am also thinking about having a Google Hangout. And I did get my first Ask the Witchy Chick email, and I will read that now. And it just so happens that it kind of ties in with this particular episode, and it really got me to thinking, which is how this episode was born. And this is the question, and it's from a nice young lady named Marissa. Hello, Marissa. um, and she says, Dear Serenity, I listened to your podcast and I really enjoyed it. I am wondering, as a woman of color, how did you come to the pagan path? Not to say that people of color cannot be part of the pagan community, it's just that I'm curious. Do you mind answering the question? Again, I want to thank you for your podcast. I really appreciate it and look forward to more episodes. Thank you and blessed be, Marissa. Well, Marissa, first of all, I want to thank you for contacting me. I appreciate it so very much. And I certainly don't mind telling you how I came to the path. I will tell you, I was born and raised Catholic. And I mean, I was a really good Catholic. At some point, I even thought about becoming a nun. I was just really connected with spirit since I was very young. And I really felt like spirituality was an important part of who I was. And but as I got older, and I mean, I did Catholic school and the whole thing. So I went to a Catholic high school. Um, but as I became older, like around 13, 14, 15, I was always I was really into books and I really loved to read and I love to read about mythology. Uh, Edith Hamilton's mythology is still one of my favorite. I read that just for fun. I know it's actually assigned as reading in a lot of college level courses, but I enjoy just reading it. And just with understanding that there were all of these amazing deities. And I just wondered, why weren't they being worshipped anymore? When did they all kind of morph into just one male person? So that was the first question. And then being a Catholic, of course, there are a lot of restrictions against women. Uh, why can't I be a priest? Why can't I, why am I only relegated to being a nun? Why are women not allowed to control their own reproductive systems? Why are we being dictated to men how we reproduce or how we wish to reproduce or how we want to plan our families or if we choose not to have families at all or not to have children? Why is that an issue? Um, these were questions that I had, and the fact that women were relegated to, you know, or I shall say subjugated to such a role. And then, that really bothered me. And then I began to look at other world religions where it always seemed like, or the big three, uh, uh, Islam as well as Judaism. And I looked and I saw that, it always was about women being put into certain roles. But I would look at this Greek mythology and those women weren't in any roles. I mean, Athena, I still have an altar and I still honor her very much. Um, I just think she's a terrific role model because she was smart and she was a soldier and she was a statesman and she was just I'm every woman. Okay, when Shaka Khan sang "I'm every woman," I think she may have been thinking about Athena because she is just all out, just badass, and I love that. And I was like, back in those days, why is it that these women were so badass and men weren't holding them down? They were like kind of running things. But now we're at this place where, my spirituality is being held back, or is being put in a box just based on my gender, which I just didn't think was fair. And I began to be troubled by Catholicism, and so I separated myself from it, and I talked with my mother about it, and I said, I think I've come to a point, and this was about at 15 or 16, where I said, I think I've just come to a point where Catholicism and myself are not. I don't believe, and I cannot continue to be a part of a community that doesn't consider me a full member. Um, and so at that point, I left Catholic school and I told her I would like to be enrolled in public school because I don't want to continue to be a part of a community that doesn't support me and doesn't support my whole being and doesn't support me being everything that I can be. And this is not to say anything against Catholicism, because if it works for you, it works for you. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it wasn't for me. It wasn't for who I am. And so I searched for something else. And like I said before, I love to read. One thing that I love to do then and still love to do now is get lost in a bookstore. And I mean, I will pull a book down and act like I'm at the library. Come on, you all do it. Don't act like I'm the only one. I'm not. But sometimes I'll pull a book down and I'll read. I will purchase the book. Do not get me wrong. I will purchase the book. But sometimes I get so immersed and I'll read the first few pages and I'm just lost. And for me, that book was The Truth About Witchcraft Today by Scott Cunningham. And he is still my personal hero. Um, I read that book and I was blown away. And so I saw a second book by him at that same time, and it was Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner. And I have not looked back since. I was 18 years old. I had my own little money, and I went to the front and I purchased my books. And I said, this is what I need to be. And since then, I have read, studied, practiced everything I could do on that path. And that was when I was 18. I am 44 now, will be 45 in November. So you do the math. I don't want to, but it's been that many years. So, Marissa, that is how I came to the path. And for me, it didn't seem to speak, it resonated with me. And that I didn't. I didn't think Scott Cunningham minded that I was a black woman on the south side of Chicago who was interested in what he was talking about. Um, I think God came to me in the way that I could recognize him. And that phase has evolved over the years to the point now where I actually practice spiritual humanism with a side of witch. So that is the answer to your question. I hope. Please feel free to comment and write in again. I appreciate it. And I think that we have come to the end of this particular episode, and it was really a lot of fun. I look forward to hearing from all of you. And I just, again, thank you so much for your support. And I hope that you will tune in again to the Witchy Chick podcast because I've got even more to talk about. Let's do it next time. Please be well and go lightly. This is Serenity, your magically delicious witch, and this has been episode 2 of the Witchy Chick.